Good afternoon. Thank you for coming for this press conference. On the 2nd of November, the Workers' Party Central Executive Committee agreed to form a disciplinary panel to look into the admissions made by Raeesah Khan in Parliament by way of personal statement on the 1st of November 2021. In the course of its work, the disciplinary panel invited members of the party to share their views on the matter ahead of submitting its report to the CEC for deliberation. Before the panel could submit its recommendations to the CEC on the 30th of November, Raeesah tendered her resignation from the party and by extension resigned as a Member of Parliament. As the CEC had not received her resignation in writing by then, it proceeded to deliberate the recommendations of the disciplinary panel. The CEC voted overwhelmingly that she would have been expected to resign on her own accord, failing which she would be expelled from the party. There have been some queries from members of the public about the knowledge the party had about the original speech Raeesah delivered on the 3rd of August and what action was taken thereafter. I will address these directly. In the course of preparing for her speech on the motion titled Empowering Women, on the Workers' Party motion entitled Empowering Women on the 3rd of August, Raeesah Khan was put on notice through the Workers' Party usual pre-parliamentary processes to be ready to substantiate her account that she had followed the victim to the police station in the event she was queried in the course of the debate. After Raeesah delivered her speech and in the course of the days that followed, I asked Raeesah to make her best efforts to contact the victim or to contact the individuals who brought the victim's case to her attention and to extend the necessary information to Minister of State for Home Affairs Desmond Tan, who had sought more details of the matter in Parliament. Initially, Raeesah stuck to her untruth in her communication with me. After being repeatedly pressed, a number of new facts and disturbing personal revelations were disclosed. These concerned Raeesah's sexual assault, an event which was unknown to the party leadership at that time, and other related matters of a deeply personal nature. Raeesah shared that her personal trauma and sexual assault explained why she was not truthful about accompanying the victim to the police station, as she had asserted in her speech on the 3rd of August. She admitted this to the party leadership about a week after she had delivered her speech. Of immediate concern to me was the fact that Raeesah had not previously informed her family members of her sexual assault, which had traumatized her greatly. In my judgment, it was important that she did so before she could fully address the reasons behind her untruthful conduct in Parliament and to correct the record. In view of her sexual assault and my assessment of her state of mind, I was prepared to give her the space necessary to address the matter with her loved ones. Raeesah came down with an episode of shingles in September and did not attend Parliament that month. It was nonetheless made known to her before the parliamentary sitting in October that any parliamentary clarification on this matter was hers to make in her capacity as an elected Member of Parliament. When questioned by the Minister for Home Affairs in Parliament on the 4th of October, Raeesah repeated an untruth on the parliamentary record, which was wholly inconsistent with the revelations she had shared with the party leadership after the 3rd of August. Almost immediately after Parliament adjourned in October, Raeesah agreed with the party leadership that she had to set the record right forthwith. I shared with her that it was the correct thing to do. The next earliest opportunity to do so in Parliament was on the 1st of November, when the member made the personal explanation under Standing Order 25. Raeesah sent her resignation letter to me on the 30th of November 2021, and I replied to it by way of letter the next day. I wish to end this statement by apologizing to the residents of Sengkang for this turn of events. I also apologize to all victims of sexual assault who have been hurt over this matter. For the party, public trust and confidence in a sitting Workers' Party MP is fundamental to the ethos of the party as a rational, responsible and respectable institution in Singapore politics. Singaporeans have the right to expect the best efforts from Workers' Party MPs, and we should never take their faith, trust and confidence in us for granted. The Sengkang team leader Herting Roo will speak after party chair with regard to how the residents in Compassville will continue to be looked after by the Workers' Party Sengkang MPs. Chair.
大家好，出现这样的局面，我们非常遗憾。对于盛港的居民，我们深感抱歉。工人党将会坚守对选民的诚信和委托，继续为你们服务。
Before we go on to the second part of this press conference, which will see the Sengkang MPs share their plans on how they will continue to look after Sengkang GRC, I will open the floor to questions. Please.
Yeah, hi, Kang Wei from China 8 here. I think Secretary Nelson mentioned that in 4th October that Ms. Raeesah Khan repeated an untruth which was inconsistent with what she had shared with the party earlier. So why wasn't there the immediate for other MPs to step up to help her to update the situation instead of waiting for the next sitting session in November?
Thank you for that question. The untruth was mentioned by Raeesah Khan in the first place. It was for her to correct the parliamentary record. And that was the position that the Workers' Party MPs took. Yes?
Just following up what you said, that it was up to Raeesah to correct the untruth. So, but...
Nicholas, could you just give me a second? Nicholas, you may want to identify. I mean, I know who you are, but you may want to identify yourself.
I'm Nicholas from Yahoo News.
Thank you.
Okay. So, as you were saying earlier, that the party position, it was up to Raeesah to correct this untruth, and she had said it herself. But having said that, to allow that untruth to remain uncorrected, wasn't that damaging to the party and also wouldn't have exacerbated the issue and resulted in more questions, not just from Sengkang residents, but all voters in Singapore?
I mean, Nicholas, that's a fair question. You see, each Workers' Party MP is a leader in his or her own right. And if you have done something wrong, it is your responsibility to set the record right. And indeed, there was a risk that the issue would be exacerbated, but only Raeesah knew the truth of what she had said and what she had experienced. And it was for her to clarify that on the record. And I think that would have been only adequately communicated through her personally.
No, I do agree that if you said it, you should own it. But again, it comes back to the issue of it's damaging to the party itself. And again, now that question has come out of what did the party know, when did it know,
Sure.
Which you have already clarified. But again, wouldn't that have resulted in long-term damage to the party if the party had not come out and said, this is what we happened?
I think this is a judgment call we have to make. If we verbalize what she told us and that information was incorrect, I'm not sure whether the consequence would have been worse, where Ms. Khan later may come out and say, actually, no, that's not really the whole truth of what was said. So that's why my earlier point as to she having to take ownership and responsibility for what was done in Parliament. Yes.
Hi, afternoon, Mr. Singh. I'm Deborah from Channel 8.
Hi, Deborah.
So I was just wondering if Raeesah had not made the admission eventually, at any point in time would the leadership decide to step in, given that it's been so long drawn since she made the first admission?
Deborah, it's a fair question. It's also hypothetical to an extent, but certainly an MP cannot be expected to leave an untruth on the record. She would have had to clarify it at some point, but that became moot by the time the Minister for Home Affairs put the question to her and I beg your pardon, she repeated what was the untruth that she originally communicated. But certainly, if you want to continue as an MP, if you want to continue as a respectable political party, you know of this fact, I think there's only one outcome. It would have to be clarified.
Just to follow up on that, was there any consideration on the police part that it may take internal action against her, knowing that she had committed an untruth?
I think that really also comes down to some questions which I have noticed online about why the disciplinary panel, I think, was formed after she made those admissions. Like I iterated to Nicholas, I think it was important that she set the record right in Parliament and that she had the opportunity to do that first. Her mistake was something that she had to own up to and take responsibility for. Once that was done and the truth of the matter was established on the record, disciplinary action from a party perspective would follow, and that's what happened. The sequence was important because it was important to establish what and why Raeesah did what she did. And Parliament was the correct platform for her to make that correction. It's also hypothetical, but she may well have resigned earlier had disciplinary proceedings been initiated prematurely, leaving the parliamentary record not corrected by her. And this, in my view, would not have been acceptable. Yes, Yancy.
I'm Yancy from the Straits Times. Can I just ask, you mentioned that you gave, based on her state of mind at that time, you gave her some time to settle the matter with the family first. Did you give her any deadline by which she should correct the mistake? And also, other than harm to the party, the fact that she made such allegations about the police is also quite severe. So what were your thoughts on, allowing these allegations to persist, and eventually it did last for about 3 months, where whoever would have read her speech or watched videos of it might, continue thinking that the police had actually done something.
I'll deal with the second question first. Indeed, that was a call that had to be made about what had been said against the police. Raeesah, I think, has apologized to the police force. I just met some members of the police who look after a part of Aljunied Hougang town 1 or 2 weeks ago. I mean, we work very professionally with one another, but to the extent that this episode has cast some aspersions on them in any way, I apologize to the police, and this should not have happened. But as a sitting MP, I must say that it cannot be the case that MPs do not raise issues of concern with regard to any government authority in Parliament. I mean, that's something that we have the prerogative to do. But certainly, to expect it to be substantiated is par for the course. Your first question about the timeline, no, I did not give her a direct timeline. It was my judgment into her state of mind. But it was quite clear in October that nothing was coming forward at that point. I believe, if my memory serves me right, leader of the House, Ms. Indrani Raja, also asked her a question about the delay from the moment she made her speech on the 3rd of August and the question that the Minister for Home Affairs put to her on the 4th of October. And she answered, it was a 2-part answer, and she said that she had to speak to her family members and loved ones, and that process was prolonged, and I suppose one could make an argument that it could have been faster, but in my judgment, given where she was emotionally, I took the decision that she had to close that loop with her parents. Yes.
I'm Sean from Rise Media. So I can't help but draw a parallel to the 2012 Yao Sengkang incident. That one took 1 month between the allegations and the dismissal. But in this case here, the allegations were made in August when she first made the allegations. So why the difference in the time frame regarding your judgment?
Thank you, Sean. I think the 2 episodes were quite different. One was an episode that occurred in Parliament, and the parliamentary record had to be set right. And I think we were quite determined that that had to be done. The question, of course, is one's judgment as to whether that person would come up and say the real reason why she would carry a lie over something to many people, I think, is quite inexplicable. Once that was done, then we had to conduct and carry out the process to assess where we stand as a party on what was done in Parliament, the conduct in Parliament. The disciplinary panel was formed expeditiously. It went about its work, but it also had to consider questions of natural justice. She spoke to us twice. The second one was her request to come and talk to us. We also invited her to present herself to the CEC and to explain her case, but she had resigned by then. As I mentioned earlier in my speech, we spoke to various party members, also to get their views and to take them on board. So there were a number of things that we wanted to do, and we did not feel that we had to rush that process. She is an MP after all, and I think it was important to ensure that natural justice took its course. On the Yao Shin Leong matter, if I cast my memory back, I was a CEC member at that time. Yao Shin Leong did not account himself to the party after the allegations were made. I think he did not address the media, he did not address the party. The party was willing to give him some space to get himself organized, but this just went on, and it went on to a point where this was just unreasonable conduct. This was not acceptable. And so the party took the decision to fire him, to sack him. And so I suppose the circumstances are a bit different. I mean, the situation is a little different, but I think something has been said in Parliament, an untruth has been carried in Parliament, and the person responsible for that untruth has to clear the air. If there are no further questions, yes, Nicholas.
Going back again to what you said about the Workers' Party MP having to clarify what they themselves said in the House. I'm just wondering, why isn't Raeesah here now to explain her actions?
Nicholas, I think she's been dismissed. She's not, I beg your pardon, she's resigned from the party. And so this is a party matter that we have got to carry forward. And this is what we're doing now.
But having said that, I mean, as I'm sure you would know, that I think a lot of voters, a lot of Singaporeans are quite perplexed by this series of events. And so far, other than what was said in Parliament, we have not heard directly from Raeesah before the media, before Singaporeans explain themselves. So, isn't it kind of expected that she would be at least here to answer for herself?
Nicholas, I can't speak for her. I can't speak for someone who is not a member of the party anymore. And that's the situation. I think she made her statement in Parliament on the 1st of November, and she was quite extensively questioned by the leader of the House as to why certain things were done, why certain things were said. And I'm sure if you want to speak to her, I think as media representatives, you can reach out to her. I mean, that's
Can I ask,
appropriate.
has she met her residents to explain why she's stepping down and what will happen next?
She continued to work in Compassville throughout the course of these few months. And I can't answer that question directly, of course, because I don't know the extent to which she reached out to the Compassville residents, but I think you can speak to them. She was on the ground. She did attend wakes. She did do the work that WPMPs are usually expected to do within the confines of course, the COVID restrictions. And the moment, of course, she has resigned from the party, she stops doing all those things.
Then can I ask, as the leadership of the party, given the revelations that, given what she has confessed to the party and what were the motivations behind it, what does the leadership feel now? Is it disappointed? Does it regret choosing Raeesah as a candidate? And is there a need to look again at the way that candidates are assessed, potential candidates are assessed?
Sure. Thanks, Nicholas, for that. Disappointment, of course. Nobody wants this sort of outcome for their MPs. But You spoke about candidate selection. I think you've heard this before. No candidate selection process can be fail-proof. We make our best efforts to select candidates who are committed to looking after residents and Singaporeans, and who as a whole can represent a wide spectrum of Singapore society. As a pan-national party and in view of the increasing diversity of our electorate, particularly the younger generation, I think we will have to continue to consider people from all walks of life. Generally speaking, the selection process will raise individuals who are most likely to be able to succeed and do well as MPs. And I think we've seen that happening. But I believe every now and then there will be conduct by some MPs or by MPs that would, as I mentioned earlier, I can't think of a better word other than inexplicable, based on the knowledge one has at the time that individual is selected for candidature. I mean, at that point, it is a judgment and assessment that that individual can actually carry the responsibility faithfully and do it well. And that was the judgment and conclusion that the party drew before she was selected as a candidate.
Just one last thing.
But just let me finish on that, Nicholas, I'll come back to it. In my mind, I think no process or no selection process can eliminate the prospect of a candidate who has certain traits or characteristics that were not highlighted or were not raised initially. But the Workers' Party will undertake our best efforts to lower this prospect as best we can, while at the same time working to ensure that there's a diverse slate of candidates in concert, as I mentioned earlier, with the increasingly diverse aspirations of Singapore society.
What checks will there be in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again? For instance, checking the speeches by the leadership.
I think I've referred to that very early on in my statement already. There was a process that was undertaken. She had put that anecdote down. It was made known to her that you better be ready to substantiate this because it is an allegation. On its own, an allegation, you can make that allegation. I don't think any of us will stop an MP from doing that, but she was put on notice to substantiate it. So the process did not fail in that regard. Why she didn't take heed of that instruction, why did she ignore it, that's not a question I can answer. Nancy?
My question is, how much responsibility do you think the leadership should take? Because this is one of the questions people have out there. And also, now that the party has gone through this experience, would you change anything in future? For example, if it happens again, to maybe compel the MP to admit to the untruth earlier, because at least as shown, it's quite damaging for the WG.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. First question on the leadership. Look, it's our MP. We take responsibility, and we have to account to the public what has happened. Second question, you talk about happens again. Now, this is a little bit more difficult, and it alludes to the comparison that was made with Yaw Shin Leong. Each case will be different, and each case will have to be addressed on its own unique facts. And in this particular case, an MP came forth with some quite personal and private details, and in my judgment, I think I had to respect some of those very private and difficult fears that MP had, and I dealt with it the best way I thought would have been appropriate in the circumstances. Yes.
Much has been said about the damage that this has done to the Workers' Party. Over the course of the last 3 months, have you encountered residents who, tried to ask what went wrong?
Yes.
How do you intend to build back that trust with the communities?
I think incidents happen, and I think the Sengkang MPs will also speak a little later, but you've just got to batten down and work hard for your residents. It has happened. You take ownership of it. You take responsibility for it. You account for it. We've tried our best to do all of that, even though the parameters were not so straightforward in some cases. in the situation that MP Raeesah was in. But as a party, I think the public also knows us, and they know we're a serious party. We try our best in trying circumstances sometimes, and we'll continue to do so. I think if you look back at the history of the party, there have been other episodes where we have had to rise and come back strong, and we've done that, and we will continue to do that. And that's my commitment to the residents of Sengkang and to all Singaporeans who support the Workers' Party, don't want to see us fail and want to see us succeed.
One follow-up on that. Will anything change in the vetting process of the candidates going forward?
I think this is a significant question, and I'm quite sure that the party leadership and the CEC will look at this question in more detail. I think it's only fair to reflect back and review what we do, but I wish to say that if you are going to try to reach out to a wide segment of the Singapore population, or to reach out to them at least, you also need MPs who have different abilities, characteristics, traits, persuasive powers, and this is also something we have to keep in mind.
Okay, so will this incident actually deter your party to field younger progressive candidates for future elections, and what does this mean for the party's progressiveness in politics? And my second question would be, will the remaining Sengkang MPs resign to trigger a by-election so as to give Sengkang residents a choice for a clean, full slate of 4 MPs?
I'll deal with the first question. Party chair will deal with the second one. The answer is quite simple for the first one. It's no. Party chair, you want to take the second question?
Yes, so I think implied in that question is the issue of by-election in the GRC. So first of all, it's important to state that the law, and this is quite clear, under the Parliamentary Elections Act, there can be no writ of by-election issued in a GRC unless all the members have vacated their seat. So that's in the law. And this position was also confirmed recently by the Court of Appeal in the case of Marsiling UT GRC, when Madam Halima vacated her seat in order to run for president. So that's the legal position. The fact is that in the general election last year, the voters of Sengkang gave the Workers' Party a mandate to represent them in Parliament. We have 3 MPs in Sengkang still there to do the work, and it is the party's responsibility to take this through for the remainder of the term. So that is what the party will do.
So there will be a resignation by the...
They will not.
I think there was a question here.
It is lady.
Yeah, Janice from today. So just want to ask, is Ms. Raeesah Khan's resignation the end of the matter from the point of view of the party, or will you guys have more internal reviews, given that you were talking about the process of how the chronological order, how it turned out? Do you see that there are certain nexus that you guys need to correct? Yeah.
Thank you for that, Janice. I think if after every episode of this nature, it would be remiss if we don't stop and look back at what has occurred and how to avoid or prevent it as far as possible in future. So I believe I answered a question similarly just on this matter just now. So that really will take place, but that will be an internal party matter, of course. I think you had an earlier question. There was one more question embedded in
Is
that.
the resignation the end of the matter?
Right. Well, we understand the Committee of Privileges continues its work, so I suppose that work will continue. I don't have any insight to the committee's work, but I think insofar as looking back, reviewing what has happened, I think that's a party matter that cannot be ignored. I think it's 12. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, just one quick question.
Sure.
Like you mentioned just now that Ms. Raeesah Khan repeated the untruth in the October parliamentary sitting, and he said that she shouldn't have done that. But what were the reasons that were shared with the party that she decided to share untruth again?
I believe this is back to the reply that she gave leader of the House. So I think if you check the Hansard, that question was put to her in a similar form, and she answered that. So I don't really want to go beyond that. Yes, last one, please, before we go to the next one.
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Singh, you mentioned about, the Committee of Privileges, they are still continuing their work, right? So can I understand, we don't know at what point the state of the investigations, but assuming that, they contact you guys and ask for more information, I'm just trying to understand, how you guys plan to sort of work with them and correspond with them.
Well, the Committee of Privileges is a standing committee of Parliament. If they call me to give evidence or to share details with them, I will do so.
So just one last thing. Now that Raeesah Khan
Sorry, who are you? Okay.
Now that Raeesah Khan is no longer a member of the Workers' Party, but she's still being investigated by the Committee of Privileges, will the Workers' Party still be providing support to her?
I thank you for that question. It is not something that she has reached out to us for, but in the event that she does, we will have to assess the nature of the query.
Sorry, just
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think on Facebook we've seen a lot of people comment about this incident, right? One of them is actually from your own party member, Associate Professor Neville.
Yes.
He said that there are some questions that we need to answer. So I'm just wondering what you feel about these comments.
Cadre members don't usually operate in the way Mr. Goh did, but this is an internal party member that we will look into. This is an internal party matter that we will look into. Okay, any more questions before we go to the second segment? Okay, thank you. The Sengkang MPs now will come on board and they will share their plans for Compassville, for Sengkang Compassville and Sengkang GRC. Okay.
We will ask to space out.
Good afternoon. The Workers' Party, in particular, the elected MPs of Sengkang GRC and the rest of the Sengkang team of volunteers, are committed to ensuring a smooth transition of resident affairs in the Compassvale division for which Ms. Raeesah Khan oversaw. The boundaries for divisions in Sengkang GRC will be redrawn into 3 divisions. Residents currently located in blocks 215 to 241, being Compassvale Mast, Vista, Plains, and Port, will be overseen by myself. Blocks 244 to 256, 291 to 292, and 295 to 299, comprising Compassvale Haven, Lodge and Green by MP Louis Chua, and blocks 286 to 290, 293 to 294, 257 to 263, comprising Compassvale Cape, Boardwalk, Gardens and Northgate by MP James Lim. These new divisions are shown on the screen. Oh, sorry, there's a technical issue. Okay. These new divisions are actually in handouts that we've just given out. And they will also be published in our various communication channels shortly. This will also be reflected in the respective lift cars and notice boards as soon as practicable for residents' convenience. These represent natural, contiguous extensions of each of the existing divisions. And folding Compassvale into the oversight of the 3 MPs ensures that all residents of Compassvale will continue to have a direct line of contact with an MP who will represent them. Naturally, residents are welcome to reach out to any one of us, even if they reside in a different division, as they have always been able to do. We will also continue to represent the interests of our residents in Parliament. The party will also provide additional support to Team Sengkang, especially for our weekly house visits, which we expect to resume in January. Operations of Sengkang Town Council will be uninterrupted, and residents can continue to reach out to TC staff via the existing channels that they currently use. SKTC remains committed to maintain high standards of service. MP Faisal Manap from Aljunied GRC will also be supporting Sengkang GRC in an advisory capacity. Oh, actually, the screen's now showing the divisions. Next, my teammate, MP Louis Chua, will say a few words.
大家好，谢谢前来参加记者招待会。就如我的同僚何庭如所說，工人黨和盛港基選區議員將會確保康普華區服務居民的事務順利交接、平穩過渡。我們會將盛港基選區劃分為3個區域，詳情請參考我們所分發的資料。居民也可以在主屋底層的公告欄查詢有關的資料。我們也會繼續在國會提出居民所關注的課題和所面對的困境，繼續為盛港居民在國會裡發言。工人黨會給予盛港團隊額外的支持，例如資源預計會在明年1月恢復的每週家訪等等的基層活動。盛港市政會將如常運作。居民如果有任何關於區內事務的疑問，可以通過往常的溝通渠道和議員們保持聯繫。此外，阿育尼集選區議員穆罕默費沙也會以顧問的身份支持盛港集選區的團隊。Now, Party Vice Chair would like to say a few words.
Please allow me to say some words in Malay. Assalamualaikum. Seperti yang diketahui, kawasan undi perwakilan berkumpulan Sengkang adalah GRC yang AP minoritinya adalah dari masyarakat Melayu Islam. Merujuk pada apa yang dikatakan awal tadi oleh rakan saya Tingru, saya telah berbincang dengan beliau, James dan juga Louis, menyuarakan kesediaan dan komitmen saya untuk bekerja rapat dengan mereka bertiga dalam memberi sokongan, pandangan dan nasihat yang sebaik dan semampunya, terutama dalam perkara-perkara berkaitan dengan masyarakat Melayu Islam di kawasan Sengkang. Terima kasih.
Okay, we will now take questions from the media.
Hey, Janice from today. So I understand that Secretary Mr. Singh is sort of explain the chronology of what happened from his point of view. I just want to know, you guys are Ms. Khan's teammates. Did she sort of reveal any information that you guys knew before maybe Mr. Singh questioned her or she revealed the information?
Thanks, Janice, for the question. On my personal perspective, I was only made aware of this as the fact that untruth was uttered in Parliament sometime in October.
Just to follow up on that, the matter, I squared the matter away with Raeesah in August, and thereafter she narrated the same to Party Chair Sylvia Lim and Vice Chair Faisal Manap. So the three of us, the party leadership, were squaring the issue away with Raeesah. Next question.
My question is for Deborah from Channel News Asia. I'm just wondering, also again, over the course of 3 months, have any residents come up to you to just talk about the damage that has been done, and were they overly concerned about the state of play in Sengkang?
Okay, thanks, Deborah. I think, as Pritam mentioned earlier, we do actually, in the course of our activities with residents and the groundwork that we do carry out, this matter has been raised to us, and we do actually, address any concerns of residents who raise this to us directly. And I think this is something that has been ongoing, and of course, as developments progress, we do speak to our residents and also respond to them directly.
I think just to add to that, Deborah, the question just doesn't come up to in Sengkang, of course. I mean, we are WPMPs in Aljunied. I mean, our own residents also ask these questions. And I mean, I think we have to be upfront with them. We have to apologize. This should not have happened. It has. And we assure them that we will continue to move forward and serve their interests faithfully. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm Sean. So I was looking at the map, right? There's only three MPs left, and as you all know, that the GRC must have one minority candidate, but there isn't right now. So will this like raise eyebrows or things like that? Without a minority MP to step into? Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. I think that's the reason why MP Faisal is stepping in an advisory capacity to assist the Sengkang GRC MPs in their work. And this is, I think, a relevant point that you've made, and that's why we've taken the decision to ensure that MP Faisal, Vice Chair Faisal, works closely with the Sengkang MPs. Nicholas?
I know that right now, as you're explaining, Sengkang has been withdrawn into 3 divisions, and the priority is to serve the residents' needs. But has there been any thought given as to who might be Raeesah's eventual replacement in looking into the next election? Do we expect to see any potential candidates in the ward?
Nicholas, it would be quite premature for me to answer that question. Generally, we will continue our work as a party to look for suitable individuals who can represent residents and Singaporeans faithfully, and that work will continue on an ongoing basis.
Hi, Janice from today. So, Mr. Singh, you have described this, you've used the words disappointed, inexplicable. So, I mean, my question is towards the 3 Sengkang MPs, right? So, you all have been, last year campaigning for GE all the way until now, and then 4 of you guys, I see as a very tight-knit team. So, having that kind of personal relation with Ms. Khan, can I know what are your thoughts are knowing about this? What are your personal feelings?
Thanks, Janice, for the question. I think actually, of course, it takes a team to run a GRC. And, we are very grateful that we have very committed members of the team who have been working tirelessly to serve our residents. The turn of events was unfortunate, and so we actually would like to thank Raeesah for the work that she's done for Compassville residents, and also to wish her the very best in the future going forward.
Any more questions? Yes, please go ahead.
I'm Shaya from Beach. So, as an MP, Raeesah has spoken up quite a bit on some minority issues, including those affecting the Malay community. But with her resignation, there is one less opposition MP who will be speaking up for this issue. So, maybe what are your comments on this and your message of assurance to the community?
Okay, that's a very thoughtful question. Indeed, the numbers matter. When you have one less MP, there are lesser parliamentary questions that can be put in the House on any given sitting day. So I don't think there's any way for me to share that that somehow can be overcome. But what it means is we all recognize that the presence of MP Faisal in the Sengkang team would assure, or we hope will assure, Malay Muslim residents in Sengkang that their issues will not be ignored, and through him can be put at the highest level in Parliament. But having said that, I also don't want to go too far with this, because as a multiracial country, there's nothing stopping any MP of any race to bring up issues that affect minority groups or communities. And this is something I think we have to remember very closely. But of course, MP Faisal will be available for the team's counsel if they need some additional information, understanding on Malay Muslim issues.
Mr. Singh, moving forward, you also talked about the importance of
maintaining integrity, building that trust, right? So what is WP's strategy moving forward? Like, how do you ensure that all your MPs will still bring to the table to Parliament foolproof arguments, perhaps, things that cannot be knocked down like what we saw in Friday?
I can't make that promise. And I think no one in their right mind will be able to make that promise. But I think we go back to first principles. What are we doing? We play an important role in Parliament. There has to be an opposition in Parliament. There has to be an opposition that will ask the questions PAP MPs will not ask. And that's an important role that we play. Of course, we are also evolving. And we believe it is critical for Singapore at this time to have a strong institution in Parliament, and we will continue to play our role in that process. Nicholas, I'll take a question from Yancy. I've taken a lot of questions from you, so we just try to spread it out a bit. Yes, Yancy.
Yeah, my question is, I think Ms. Khan mentioned just now that she was made aware of the untruth sometime in October. So is it correct to say that until Ms. Khan repeated the untruth in Parliament a second time, were you the only person who knew about it in the party, or like were others aware?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, three of us were aware. That's myself, Party Chair Sylvia Lim, and Vice Chair Faisal Manap. And because there were some very private personal details I want to be careful because I don't want to go beyond what Raeesah has already said in Parliament about this condition, about what she was facing. It was, in my judgment, important to keep it within a close circle, out of respect to Raeesah, and then to take it forward. At some point, of course, the team must know, but at that point, I made the decision that I did.
Can I ask the Sengkang team, like, what happened when they found out, like, did you speak to Ms. Khan, or, did you try to make plans for any future plans? I mean, what was going through your mind when it happened?
Thanks for the question, Yancy. I think, when Raeesah did come to speak to me, I think, the first thing from my perspective was concern. Because it's not an easy situation to be in, especially when she did, as Prita mentioned earlier, she did share some of her personal experiences. So I think that was the overriding, sense that or the conversation that we had, and then of course we also discussed, how she would actually bring up the matter in Parliament, and I think that's just something that naturally flowed on from that. And I think the work in Sengkang carried on. We still have to do the groundwork. The parliamentary work as well. Still had to carry on.
Nicholas, go ahead.
So, looking at the bigger picture in the House, so you've gone from 10 MPs to now 9 MPs, and I'm just wondering how much does that affect the party's ability to raise issues in the House, and are you prepared for the issue to come up again in the House with the subsequent implications that how can we trust that the Workers' Party MP is telling the truth?
Yeah, I think this is something that some people may think, but just think about the consequences when a Workers' Party MP tells an untruth. I think the consequences are clear. You have to account for your conduct, and then you've got to face a number of very harsh outcomes. So I will leave it at that. But in terms of the numerical point that you brought up, indeed, losing one MP is a big thing for the WP. That's 10%. But I think, which paper? I think ST ran a piece not too long ago about the performance of MPs in Parliament, and the Sengkang team as a whole are doing well in terms of the issues they're bringing to Parliament, matters that are raised. My colleague Louis Chua raised a matter concerning HDB rentals. There was, I think, a forum letter that came in the Straits Times, and then an ST journalist wrote a counter piece to that, and I think the Business Times ran a long piece on some of the suggestions that MP Lewis made in Parliament. James spoke on wealth taxes, issues concerning inequality. Ru, of course, led the motion on empowering women. And so this is a strong team that we have here. And the team is made of stern stuff. The challenge just got harder. But I cannot think of any better people to take on that challenge.
Sengkang from the Straits Times. I know you addressed earlier the question of whether speeches would be better, whether anecdotes would be checked.
Ray, I beg your pardon, I was distracted. Could you repeat the question, please?
I know you addressed earlier the question of whether MP speeches would be vetted more thoroughly, but I'm wondering specifically when it comes to allegations or accusations against perhaps public bodies or specific individuals, will there be more attention to those instances?
Ray, thank you for that question. You see, when an MP makes an assertion of fact, I followed this person to a police station, I think instinctively the reaction would be, there's no reason to doubt you. But what we did and the process held, when you make that, some alarm bell has gone off. It did go off in this case. But the MP in question did not heed that alarm. So I fully expect the alarm to continue going off as it has in the past, and MPs have reacted to it and adjusted and sharpened their argument and made sure that they are aware of what they are saying. So I think the process is fine. The process is working. But of course, with every lesson, it would be a disservice if you don't learn from it. And so I think we've got to also always remember about how important it is to be acute and specific and objective-oriented when we raise things in Parliament. Okay, it looks like there are no further questions. It just leaves me to say one more time to apologize to the residents of Sengkang. We will recover, we will serve you well, and we will serve you to the best of our abilities. That's our commitment, not just in Sengkang, but in all the wards. And we thank you for your support. I think there have been messages of support for the Sengkang team and some of us. There's also been disappointment. I acknowledge the disappointment, and we'll turn this around. My message to Raeesah, she was a member of our team. She's played her part. I thank her for her contributions to the party, and I think it was an honourable thing for her to do, to correct the record in Parliament. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming.